Today we are going to talk about the mysteries of the Russian soul. But don't worry, this won't be a lecture with quotes from Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. No, this is a personal perspective from someone born in Russia, as someone who watches with pain the slow disintegration of a once great country. So, what is the enigma of the Russian soul? Foreigners are often struck by how grim and gloomy Russians appear. They don't smile much. And that's true, but only partially true. If you knew more about what life is like in distant Russia, you'd understand why people live in constant expectation of something bad happening. And yet, it's another Russian trait, and Russians are incredibly sociable and open-hearted. This quality is rooted in the vastness of their country, where every guest, every stranger was welcomed. After all, traveling through frozen wastelands is no easy feat. Who hasn't heard tales of travelers freezing to death just steps away from a village? Or the sorrowful songs of coachmen wandering the snow. It's no wonder Russians are ready to share everything they have. As the saying goes, they'd give you the shirt off their back. That is the essence of the open Russian soul, isn't it? Boris Berezovsky comes to mind, a key ally of Yeltsin, who seized billions during the chaotic SR. They used to say about Berezovsky that he would give his last shirt to a friend. Ironically, he was the one who brought Vladimir Putin to power, a man who never dreamed of being president, only hoping for a comfy spot at Gazprom. But let's talk about the soul. Berezovsky once admitted during Perestroika, and he and everyone else who didn't just sit idle were essentially criminals. So remember this in Russia. Our justice and law are not the same thing. They're separate concepts. It's a national trait going back to revolutionary times, when the rural community, the Mir, decided what was right. The village's decision overrode the law. What the people said was just, that was just. Remember Lenin's slogans? "L power to the Soviets." That was essentially a call for power to be given to the People's Council, to give to community. That's why millions of peasants supported a party that, at the time, had almost no presence in government. And now let's talk about fairness with a simple, everyday example. Suppose there's a well-paying job. You have a choice to hire a qualified outsider, or give the job to your cousin or family friend who's loyal but not skilled. What do some ethnic groups do? They always help their own. And that's how the markets in Russia ended up controlled by outsiders. They look after each other. But a Russian will hire the skilled person. That's fairness, that's justice. It's not always good for nationalists, and who say Russians must help Russians, because that conflicts with this deeper trait. The Russian sense of justice and blood-based identity is flown away. Hitler raved about the Aryan race, but how do you define an Aryan? Skull shape, type, DNA. Isn't it simpler to judge by talent and integrity? Whoever is more capable and worthy, they should rise. As we say, skill can't be drunk away. Just a joke, or maybe not. Now, consider another trait, boldness. Sometimes to the point of madness. They'll dive from a cliff into water without checking the depth. Sometimes they break their depths. But this same recklessness can lead to astonishing victories. Russians win wars. As the saying goes, fortune favors the brave. Yet the same Russians, once they abandon morality, can commit horrifying cruelty. Abaleskov wrote about this, about the suppliers during UWI who looted without restraint, and delivering uniforms that disintegrated in rain, boots that fell apart. Think it's any different in modern wars. And this is the frightening truth: the Russian has no built-in limiters. Once they lose faith in God or justice, all boundaries vanish. But aren't Russians orthodox? You may ask. Many claim to believe, but not all live with conscience. Often, Russians live in extremis. They either live in harmony with society and conscience, or they abandon all morality. No authority matters anymore. As the song goes, if you love, love deeply. If you shoot, shoot to kill. You see the point. And another thing that amazes outsiders is the Russian tolerance, which looks like servile obedience. And look what Berezovsky and Chubais did. They seized the entire country, all its wealth, everything but generations, and handed it over to a few billionaires. Gave it a bull. The authorities forgot both conscience and the law. People lost their apartments and jobs. Everything went to hell when billionaires became untouchable. And what about the people? They endured. They didn't revolt. Russia, the richest country in resources, land, forests, industry, science, what has it become? If these rulers had a shred of sense or conscience, they could have maintained a decent life for the people while still enjoying their luxury. But no, They gutted the country, turned it into a corpse, Somalia, Uganda, or worse. Russia is dying. Demographers say it loses 1 million people a year. The industry is dead. We don't even make our own nails anymore. Ironically, one of the USSR's most famous films, The Communist, is about a man trying to secure nails for a factory. A century after Gagarin, and we're back to having no nails. This is the result of betrayal that benefited the so-called civilized West. And look around, forests burn and are written off as losses. Millions of square kilometers every year. And the seas are polluted, and the people still silent. Ukrainian experts mock the slavish soul of Rus, but it is not that simple. But this is a nation of warriors and victors. It was Russians who broke the spine of Nazi Germany. The country bled for victory. That war shaped the people's psychic discipline, unquestioning obedience. That's how character was formed. But that same discipline, over time, became just a habit, a blind faith in the government. Every coin has its flip side. When the government was rotten, the people still believed and waited for the government to fix everything, right. This became our trait, to endure and believe. The same people are now being led to slaughter, and they still believe in their deputies. In Parag the boxer, Carolyn the wrestler, cosmonauts, actors like Mashkov. There are guys. They won guys. And what about Tereshkova, first woman in space? And now, she proposed abolishing the Constitution for Putin. So yes, the people endure. And they don't see that it's the heroes, their idols, who now serve as a facade for power. The media defeats and lies. To the common man, Emma Putin is the savior, lifting the country off its knees. 30 years of lifting the country stilts in misery. And these are not smiling people. Don't expect Mayday grins. There are reasons. And one more trait. This same boundless bravery, now with blood on the lips. Let me remind you how the bloody revolution and civil war began in 1918. People were living ordinary lives one day, and the next everything collapsed. Many didn't even hear rest before it struck. And then chaos, brother turned on brother, executions, torture, hunger. Why? Where did it come from? And today's pair of Carolines will also claim there's no reason for unrest. But when the time comes, they'll be lined up against the wall too. The wealthy in fancy suits with luxury watches, they'll be called enemies. No innocence, as Detective Finnesley said. You chop wood, splinters will fly. It's a Russian proverb. It means when big changes come, everyone suffers, even the innocent. Poet Alexander Blok wrote that during the revolution, peasants burned his library just to spite the landowner. In the same way, once the rebels rise, they no longer distinguish guilt. That's why civil wars are so cruel. You either stay human or you become a butcher. So, to all the smug elites proud of your careers, your homes, your wealth, remember why Pushkin called the Russian revolt senseless and merciless. And don't think it'll stop in Russia. And the flames might reach you. When the Russian swings his club, maybe even an atomic one, you'll feel it. And deservedly so. And don't say you had nothing to do with it. And justice, you ask, is this justice to burn the world like a library? Maybe not. But justice had its time, before the war. Now it's too late. In war, there are no laws, no honor. And that's the nature of the world. The strong are always right, the weak helpless. And the only thing left to the weak is self-destruction. Some set themselves on fire. Others strap on grenades to take enemies with them. And this too is a form of protest. And did you know Russia leads the world in suicides among working men? Guess why? This is also a feature of the Russian character. Either or. Having cut off the head, do not cry over. Let me explain. Why regret the loss if everything is already lost? If everything around is already completely bad, catastrophic, then what is the point of such a life? Here you have the mysticism of the mysterious Russian soul, capable empathy, openness, trust, as well as boundless courage and completely unthinkable cruelty. Although now a new generation has grown up, as they say, with a Pepsi generation with its own standards of goodness, honor, and truth, they are little like the old Russians who sang in chorus at holiday tables, like their fathers, and took Berlin. For them, this is like the myths of ancient Greece, a beautiful fairy tale and nothing more. With this, I conclude my short story about the mystery of the Russian soul. All the best, my dear friend. This channel is about mysticism, unsolved mysteries, and inexplicable phenomena of our world. Subscribe and view videos.